This is the Comedy Kiosk, podcast by Monday and Munoz. Please welcome Monday and Munoz.
Hello and welcome to the Comedy Kiosk, a podcast in which we discuss news, opinions and ideas about comedy. My name is Igor Monday.
And I'm David Munoz.
And today we decided to talk about a topic that is very relatable, I think, to any comedian that's done live shows in a room full of audience. When the show doesn't go well, when the show doesn't work, and we're not talking about one comedian maybe coming with a new unpolished raw set or just bombing or something, but I'm talking about the whole show, when the vibe is just off, when it just doesn't go well and so on. Who's to blame? Is it our fault or is it your fault? When I say your fault, I mean the audience, of course, the people who came for the show. So how can we actually distinguish basically who made a mistake, what was wrong, what are the factors that contribute to the success of the show? So let's start with some of the shows that two of us have hosted, because I think as a host you have the best maybe understanding and best overview of the whole show as such, of the lineup of the comics, the audience, the other factors, maybe, I don't know, the temperature of the room, availability of oxygen, I don't know, these kind of things, the volume of the microphone, all these kind of things. So both of us, we regularly host shows here in Moscow where we are stationed. We also hosted shows when we traveled and in different places, in different cities, even in different countries. And of course, rooms are different, people are different, the clubs are different, stages different, and so on. So out of the shows you've hosted, David, when the show overall just wasn't good, you just never hit that right, note, that right, I don't know, string to get the people going and to have that amazing atmosphere that energizes everyone and so on. What do you think? What went wrong?
Well, the first thing the listener needs to understand is that the scene for us here in Moscow is a little bit different than, for example, if you're listening in America or Britain, right? Because if you're in America or Britain, your audience is pretty much going to be all native speakers, maybe one or two tourists or whatever. For us, it's sort of different. So a factor is the fact that a factor is the fact that sometimes our audience doesn't know English that well. Yeah,
it's very possible that people simply don't understand us.
Yeah.
There is a huge possibility of that, first of all.
Yeah, so there's always that risk. The thing is, an interesting point is I think our opinion on how to deal with that issue for us has changed over time. I remember in the beginning, it was a lot more, we were simplifying our speech, we slowed down a lot more, I think. But then we started kind of going more into the mentality of we didn't want to censor ourselves or warp what we wanted to say that much. So we started, I think quite a lot of us started kind of keeping to what we originally intended to say. And it was sort of like, well, the audience either keeps up or doesn't. Now, I'm not saying we go full tilt, we don't go complete, there are some things we still simplify, whatever, but we tend to try not to compromise. That's the word I'm looking for. Try not to compromise our stuff as much as we used to. But I think sometimes then, we could end up with some people being left behind. And if it turns out the majority of our audience are only of a middle level of English, it can leave them behind. Now, another factor I noticed is sometimes it's me. I have gone up on stage and I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm just really not fully into the mojo that day. I just not that comfortable. And that can be a factor. And for example, my wife pointed out that I have two modes when I'm hosting a show. One mode is the usual energetic, bouncy sort of, showmanship sort of style, kind of over the top. The other one is more of a relaxed, chilled, kind of like everything is all right, this is a safe place sort of attitude with a little bit of cheek in it. And she says sometimes when I'm obviously meant to be maybe I should be the more relaxed version, but I'm trying to pump it up because I'm like, this needs to be, my heart doesn't seem to be in it. And she's like, it feels a little off for her. I still get people coming up to me later on saying, "Oh my God, you're amazing."
Yeah, people coming after you.
How
bad were you on stage that people come after you? They're like, eliminate the threat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, pretty bad to be honest. So that can be a factor. It's just me in that regard. Another factor can be when I don't know. I think the problem sometimes that we have, and I think it's also because we aren't all great experienced comedians, but sometimes maybe we're not doing the material that's right for the crowd. That could be another factor where instead of being able to, maybe when we don't have the skill where we're not really, sometimes we can read the crowd really well, sometimes we can't. And, you have to know, like, for example, I've seen comedians get up there with some material and you just think, this is not the crowd for that kind of material. But the problem is that we've set in our mind, I want to do this material tonight. I've worked on new bits. I've done this. And it could be circumstance where you're almost like, oh, but I already worked on this bit. I already did this bit last week. And it would be great for this night as well. But I see some of the familiar faces. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to risk that. So you do new material. Maybe your new material is not really perfect for it. Or you tried some old material that you haven't done in a while, so it's a bit rusty. So I think all these factors could be in, and which that comes in part of the scene that we have is that we only have a couple of venues to perform at. So we're kind of limited sometimes, and yeah.
I think for more context of our specific situation, but I wouldn't say that it's a unique situation because I think in places where English is not a native language and there is an English-speaking scene, and the places I've been to, I've seen very, very, very common factors and common situations all around the place. So wherever there is some kind of English open mic showcases, like headliner shows and so on, in a non-native speaking country, some challenges and some parallels can be drawn that are exactly the same. So to get a bit more context on our situation here in Moscow, in Russia, you can refer to episodes where we talk about building a scene, building a stand-up scene. That's the title of the episode. Language in comedy, talking about how is it to perform in a non-native language for us and in a non-native language for the audience. And I think we also mentioned this in our episode on the road when we talk about going to smaller Russian cities where the audience is 100% just Russians who are, let's say, students of English or members of some English-speaking clubs or something like this. But the real question that we wanted to ask in this episode, I think, is actually who carries the biggest part of responsibility for making the show work or doesn't work. And as I see it, and all these factors that I mentioned a few minutes ago, even like the temperature of the room can, of course, be an factor that can influence the comfort of the audience, comfort of the comedian or anything like this. And we've done we've done many shows in a few venues that were, for example, most of our venues are underground. So I think out of maybe 50 different venues I performed in Moscow only, I performed in more than 30 different venues. And I think, let's say 90% of them were in a basement. So that's the usual setup.
Why is that? Is it just, it has to be in a basement? It's not a comedy club unless it is in basement, where we can then put blindfold on you and Hessian bag and get rid of you if joke is bad.
I think there might be a factor of that, like you can be eliminated without any suspicion if you are in the basement already. Yeah. But I mean, it also it has more of that kind of vibe and so on, the brick walls, the kind of cellar.
So basically, it's like someone is trying to find a venue and they're going through a building and it's like plasterboard, damn it, plasterboard, damn it, carpet on the wall, ugh. Keep going until, brick wall, where is it? In the basement. Damn it. All right, fine.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It has to be in the basement. It's the only one with a brick wall.
But it's also, the basement thing is a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Because here in Moscow, especially during kind of spring, summer, and early autumn, we have daylight up until like 9, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So many shows that we had in venues that were like ground floor, basically you start the show at 9 and it's still kind of sunny and bright.
Yeah.
And it's just not right atmosphere for stand-up. You know, you want people to drink, you want to be like this, the only light should be the light on stage, on the comedian and so on. But no, it's like beautiful, bright day outside and people kind of look through the window and think, I could be in a park right now, not on this shit show. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really, that's why basements sometimes actually help, because you enter that basement and you forget that it's a beautiful, warm, nice day outside. You're now in this atmosphere of this club, of this room. But yeah, so such kind of small factors like brightness or temperature and so on can definitely influence, but I'm not sure that they can decide the course of the show. So I would divide it like this. I would say host is a major factor.
Yeah.
Lineup, the comics themselves, or comic, if it's some kind of headliner show or whatever, and then the audience.
Yeah.
And this is, let's kind of discuss what do we, from experience and from opinion, where do we feel that the biggest share of responsibility falls on which kind of category of these three? Because in my opinion, and I agree with you 100%, there's times when I go up on stage, especially as a host, where I just kind of feel it. Like I feel like up to it. I feel like I want to host. I feel like the energy. I feel pumped. I feel like, thrilled to be there. I feel like I have some enthusiasm, some energy, something to say, and I just kind of spread this charisma and energy across the room. People pick it up and they enjoy it as well. Sometimes I'm neutral. So if the audience gives me energy, I get energized and I kind of ride this wave. But sometimes I remember a couple of times I just didn't feel well. For example, I hosted a show just yesterday and I had terrible stomachache during the whole day. I think I had some kind of food poisoning or something, and I just didn't feel well. And I think that's, as a host, if there is a host of the show who is kind of, let's say, the one that welcomes people, the one that people relate to, the one that should spread that good energy and good vibe. If you don't feel it, then it's really hard to fake it and people immediately feel it. So in that kind of case, I would say that it depends on the host. When I was a performer, doesn't matter, opener, warm-up, headliner, whatever kind of my role was in that show, I feel that also determines the course of the show. But as you mentioned here, we also have a very, very specific situation with the audience. And I would be lying if I didn't say that sometimes we had shows where no matter what you did, like I've done jokes that I've done everywhere I performed. And I performed in 14 different countries for kind of different formats of the show, paid shows, showcases, whatever. And these are jokes that work. That's nothing, no other word I can use to describe them. They work. They get laughs every time. There were shows, especially here in Moscow, when I do that exact joke in that exact way, with that exact energy and whatever. So it's not, I didn't like half-ass it or something. I really give my best, and it still gets a few chuckles. Because people either don't understand it, depending on their level of English, or they just don't. What we have also, in addition to audiences who don't understand English, we occasionally have audiences who don't understand stand-up.
It's a cultural thing sometimes as well, can also be an issue. Like we were discussing before, like the last couple of shows that we've each had, it seems to be kind of a little bit stagnant. I don't know how to put it. It's hard to really get them warmed up in a sense. And it kind of reminded me from our first shows when we first started, and it was really like stand-up was actually kind of a new thing, and you would get up and they'd be sitting there like, okay, this is kind of new. I'll just sit quietly and just watch. I'll just watch and listen, and that's it. And then I'll do nothing. I'll respectfully watch. I'll never take my attention away. I'll focus. Show is over. Okay, and then I'll go up to the comedian and tell him that it was absolutely brilliant and I loved the experience, without once actually showing any emotion or any feelings to the comedian until the very end, who is now going to look at me and wonder why the fuck I didn't just laugh at least once. Throughout his entire set.
I remember that exact example a couple of weeks ago. There was a person, and I was hosting the show, and every comedian, we had 6 comics. It was a kind of selected comedians night, and every comic that came off the stage told me exactly the same thing. Did you see the angry girl in the front row? And there was a girl in the front row who just sat with her arms crossed, and angry kind of resting bitch face during the whole show. And after the show, it was a group of 3 friends. One of them was that person. The other 2 like smiled, chuckled, even laughed at points. And I was standing near the door, kind of thanking people for coming to the show and so on. And they came up to me, and that girl, like, she said, "Oh my God, that was really funny. I really enjoyed it."
And you were like, "I want to kill you now."
Yeah, it's just, I think some people just, they're hard to read. But when you have such a person in the front row and you kind of make direct eye contact and someone looks like legitimately angry at you, then it's a little bit off-putting. But I mean, the thing is, I think what you described, this example of an audience member, it's very relevant for our situation here, because I think what we had in the very beginning, like 5-6 years ago when we only started with English comedy, is very similar to what we have now. We attract people who see something new, something interesting, and they want to come and experience it. but they're not 100% sure what they are experiencing. So what is, they
It's
don't
a new
understand
thing for them.
Yeah, they don't understand the culture of stand-up. And even when we have people who are regulars or who know what stand-up is, some kind of foreigners from countries where stand-up is a proper, legit form of entertainment. Again, States, Canada, Britain, Australia, doesn't matter, or any other country where it exists for decades, for example, they want to laugh.
Yeah.
But they're uncomfortable being the only ones laughing in a room full of silent people.
Yeah.
So this is the problem, because laughter is also such a social viral thing. It's like spreads. So unless you build up on that, you have to ignite the room to have the flame, So I think the problem that we have occasionally is that audiences, so as you mentioned, they don't understand the language itself. Yeah. Sometimes they don't understand the culture of comedy. And sometimes, what I've also noticed both as a host and a performer, is that sometimes, as you also rightfully said, sometimes the jokes just don't match the room.
Yeah.
So if we have a room full of girls, for example, girls, especially here in Russia, girls really, really, really don't appreciate any kind of, I would say, blue humor or like edgy jokes or anything. So don't talk about anything like pornography, anything about like feminism, anything about like domestic abuse, anything about things like rape, abortions, God forbid, some taboo topics. No, they just immediately frown at this
even when coming from a female comedian, sometimes you can see them giving the look of like, what are you doing? How can you talk about that?
Yeah, like
that's very unladylike.
They just feel disgusted by such topics, and like you can see they're visibly cringing at some words that people use. I mean, I'm not saying that's all all Russian girls that comes to stand up are like this. I'm talking about some kind of, let's say, average attendee, and also a type of audience member that I really don't enjoy is a young couple. This is to me this is a stand-up killer.
Okay, wait. Do you mean young couple as in they've only been going out for a short period of time, or are you talking young as in age?
I'm talking young as in age, and both. Actually, both, because I think that combination is the worst. Because when there is, let's say, a married couple in their 40s or 50s,
because they can't stop touching each other, finger banging each other, shit like that.
No, that's not. I don't know what kind of shows you're going to. I think you're going to very different shows than me. You're going to some kind of sex party. But
is that what I've been hosting? Shit.
That's and then you're wondering why your jokes don't land. Like, excuse me, sir, I'm busy fingering this woman. No. I mean, okay, let me explain.
You got a mental image, you sick freak.
I'm just trying to work through this image in my mind. But
yeah, let her finish. Then continue with your thought.
So what I was trying to say is that when we have let's say a married couple in their 50s, so they've been married for 20 years and they're fully comfortable with each other. So first of all, they're not ashamed of enjoying a joke or something like this. Yeah. And they're also kind of like, they're two friends, because they're married couple and so on. But when it's a young couple, young in both age and the relationship. So first of all, they're kind of all younger people here are a bit, especially younger Russian people, are again a bit timid and they're not sure what they can laugh at, and they're embarrassed of enjoying a good porn joke. And we do many good porn jokes. That's the staple of our comedy club.
Like a absolutely expertly made kielbasa sausage. Oh yeah.
Yeah, why I think this is an issue, first of all, that factor of embarrassment, but also what I see almost always is the guy is really trying to enjoy the show and laugh, and the girl is looking at him like, don't you fucking dare laugh at this. It's that kind of like, so there is a porn joke and the guy really finds it funny. He's afraid to laugh because he thinks, if I laugh at this, she will know I watch porn. Therefore, I will not be kind of a gentleman knight in shining armor guy for her anymore. Yeah. But if he laughs, I see the girl looking at him like, really? You laugh at that? Porn's funny to you? Dick jokes? Really? You're on that level of humor? So it's really that kind of, let's say, 21-year-old young Russian couple that is it's a show killer. And we had some shows in different venues where there would be, out of, let's say, 50 people, 40 people would be young Russian couples.
Well, in that case, I would say I would say, one, that's not our problem. That's his problem. Like the boyfriend's problem. He doesn't feel comfortable laughing in front of her. That's his issue to deal with. It's like, find yourself a girlfriend who's going to be, who is not deluded and actually knows that people are people and that we all watch porn or we all like gross humor and stuff like that. Like, if anything, we're a great litmus test, those two are not meant to be together, obviously. He's not the right guy for her and she's not the right girl for him. So all I'm saying is you're welcome for the breakup. But on the other hand, then I would say, like, okay, so the problem is there with the audience, okay, in that case. But then it's our job as a comedian as comedians, as hosts, as performers, to kind of use that, or at least try to make the best out of that situation. So it would be along the lines of maybe as the host, somehow cracking some jokes about maybe doing some relationship, like you don't want to admit it, but this is what we all do. Everyone shits, everyone pisses, everyone farts, everyone does this and that. Maybe even make some jokes about, like, in the beginning of a relationship, you're hiding things, because that makes it relatable to them, and then might make them open up a bit more and feel a bit more comfortable when you go a bit bluer or a bit more taboo. And that way, like, that's what I'm saying, it comes with experience, but also comes with material. Like, I don't have that kind of material, so all of a sudden I'm like, shit, I will either have to avoid it and go, okay, everyone avoid relationship topics or porn stuff and relationships suck, or like, my girlfriend is crazy, my boyfriend's a dick, get rid of that, because I don't know how to soften it. I don't know how to soften the young couple. I don't have material for that.
That's the problem, because even if you do have I have a lot of like relationship material, but it doesn't resonate with them because they've been together for 2 months. Yeah, it's not a real relationship.
But that's what I mean. We don't have 2-month relationship material.
So
we don't have material that's like, so we have you noticed in the first month of relationship, it's always like this, you don't do this. We don't have that material. Maybe we should. Maybe we should get ready. If this is a problem, then maybe we should get ready for it and be like, right, we need to have material that aims for these trouble spots.
But then again, and this is something that we talked about in our episode where we talk about age of performers and at which point you should start performing and what is the right age to do stand-up and this kind of stuff. The fact is that our resident comedians are in very, very big majority 30 plus. And at this point, mostly married or in a stable long-term relationship. And even some of them with children. And for example, yesterday, we had a comedian who set out of his 10 minutes, I would say a good like 7 minutes were about his wife and his kid.
Yeah.
And this is really good material. And I've seen this material many times, and these are good jokes.
Yeah.
But yesterday they just didn't work. And I tried
young audience then.
I was curious. So I tried my material about having children and how I'm not ready and why I'm not ready and so on. So I usually premise this joke with a question, clap if you're a parent. There was one person in the room. We had 40 plus people. Yeah. One person was a parent. And that's just it. So
how did your material go?
My material, these jokes, they're kind of in general about kids nowadays. So they're not about, being a father, because I'm not a father. So, but just to understand the room, I asked that question.
Yeah, but but did you do that material?
Which material?
The one about not wanting to have kids and stuff.
Yeah, I did that material.
And how did it go down?
It also didn't go, it went okay, but I can't say that I got laughs of the whole room, because I think there were people who were at that point that they're not a parent now, but they are maybe kind of the right age to be parents, or the people that get pressured by their, let's say, parents or relatives.
In Russia, that's 25 years old.
19. But but I mean, there was also a big group of people that was obviously under 25, under 22, I would say, who is not even thinking about those kind of things. So they can in no way relate to a joke like, I'm not ready to be a parent, because they're thinking, I'm not ready to own a Tamagotchi. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, I'm not ready to be an adult.
They don't know what a Tamagotchi is.
Yeah, that's why they're not ready. So they wouldn't even know where to start, like, with taking care of.
I'm pretty sure even there's some listeners right now going, "What the fuck is a Tamagotchi? What? A Tamagotchi?
Everyone knows it.
What's a Gotchi?
You know what a Tamagotchi is?
Oh, I know what a Tamagotchi is.
So I'm pretty sure, like, okay, or Furby or something like this, like.
Wow, do you want to go further back here? Like,
yeah, I don't know. What else was a virtual pet?
An Etch-a-Sketch? Is that your next thing? Is that what you're going to
bring? That's not a pet.
Or hula hoop. That's what. Let's go back to the hula hoop.
Yeah, because every good parent needs to know what a hula hoop is. But yeah, I mean, and also hula hoop is still very much a thing. I don't know in what kind of world do you live in, but people still hula hoop. But yeah, now you completely threw me off with your toys from the 90s. Well,
90s?
Toys from the 60s? I don't know.
Yeah, that was like, hula hoops was like the 50s.
Anyways, yeah, so what I wanted to say is that simply there was this kind of gap between, but also not really, because yesterday we also had comics and on that same show who were doing very, very kind of, I'm a young person, I'm a millennial or whatever, which gen are they now? Gen Z, Gen something?
Yeah, Z.
So
Millennials Z, but there's one after that, I think.
Yeah, that one, the TikTokers, that generation TikTok.
Yep.
So that, kind of, I'm young and confused and I fit nowhere and no one loves me and I will look at a lot of dank memes online, that kind of generation. And they still didn't relate and laugh to any of that material either. So which was, with us in our particular case, sometimes you can obviously blame it on the audience if they simply don't understand the language.
Yeah.
Or if you see immediately that they kind of don't know what stand-up is. But do you think, because if, the general rule of anything in life is if you throw enough shit, something will stick, right? But I'm sure you've had these shows, because I've had these shows when you throw everything you have, and nothing sticks.
Yeah.
Like, what to do? Is there any way to save that kind of show? Is there something we're doing wrong? What do you think? What's the mistake? Who's to blame?
Who's to blame? God. In that case, I think everybody. I think everyone's letting everyone down. What to do? I would say laugh at it. Just laugh at it. And if anything, sometimes it might even be good to acknowledge it. I think it might be good to reset the clock. You might have to do a reset in a way. And that might be first by acknowledging it, going, oh, wow, we're not really doing that well tonight, are we? Ladies and gentlemen, like, geez, like, you guys aren't finding it funny. Did anybody have like a relative die or something, or da-da-da? And then, trying to kind of loosen it up, but acknowledging the fact that, look, we're not having a great time.
I'm sorry, your way of dealing with a show that's not working already is bringing up someone's recently died relative.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Keep it light, yeah. Keep it light.
Keep it light. Just one dead relative. Don't bring up two. That's a bit overkill. So, or the puppy. This is what I mean. Like, you've got to kind of, I think you have to reset the clock. You have to acknowledge that it's not going that great. And I've seen some people, like, when they kind of, once you admit that, yeah, it's not going that great, the audience actually, I've seen them do that kind of that relief laugh, like, ha ha ha, like, oh yeah, okay, so it's not just me, like, we're all feeling awkward. I think you need to somehow break that tension. How? God knows. This is where experience comes in. I would probably just try to acknowledge it. But where do I go with that? What's the next step? How do I acknowledge it? I'm not even sure. I think it would be very hit and miss, and I think it would be a bit of a failure in and of itself. But I might get something good out of it, and then from that, it's like, okay, so that's how I can break it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. So have you had those shows where you the show finished and you were playing some, let's say, not like an open mic or not even a show with, 4, 6, 10 different comics. So, you have very little share of responsibility for that show. But when you were a host or a headliner or something like this, and it just didn't go well, and after the show, you think to yourself, would be better if I just stayed at home. Like, I could have just watched YouTube, like, and
Netflix,
or I could have
finished that last step.
Yeah, I could have met my friends or anything basically except waste my time here, because I now just feel a bit disappointed, a bit bitter, a bit like angry at myself or angry at them, or I'm not sure. Like,
now, are you talking about a whole night where the whole night was dead, or just your bit is dead?
Well, I would say when it's just your bit, then I think it's very easy to understand.
I suck.
Whose fault it was. Wait, everyone else killed, everyone was hilarious, the audience loved it, but for some reason they didn't laugh at me. Whose fault was that? I think it's...
Damn you, host.
Yeah, damn you, host. The temperature was so...
And that girl with the crossed arms in the front row?
Yeah.
Bitch.
I mean, in that case, I think it's very obvious whose fault was that? But I mean,
You'd think.
Well-
I've heard comedians still not want to admit, like, in denial, and you just feel like, man, the crowd sucks. And you're just sitting there thinking, really, dude? Because they're loving me, they love that guy, they love that girl. What the hell?
well, I mean, in that case, yeah, there are some people who don't want to admit it to themselves, and also there can be a situation where I've had this, where, for example, the show is going great, and then the comedian before me or the host before me
Kills it.
just does a very kind of weird or cringy or something out of place comment or a joke or something, and then I go on, and that whole atmosphere that existed is suddenly kind of flat. It's suddenly dead.
Yeah.
And then if you go out strong, you can pick it back up, but it's a work. You have to do work again.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, then your job changes. It's now you're no longer doing your bit. You're now helping the club get the audience back on track. You're then basically like, oh, I'm the doctor.
Yeah,
like
so
I'm not.
You're fixing a problem.
Yeah.
But let's say that. So it's not only you who didn't do well. In that case, I think it's pretty obvious whose fault it is. But let's say the whole show didn't do well. But you, as a either host or a headliner or something, maybe an opener, like you.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, could have contributed to the quality and the atmosphere of that show. So that show finishes. You understand that.
You feel like crap.
Yeah. Oh my God.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
Useless.
Then what?
Well, I then have to remind myself, no, it wasn't. Like, it's not useless. Everything is an experience. It's a learning curve. You have to have those bad shows. You can't have every single show go brilliantly. You try to figure out, okay, why did it suck? Was it the audience just didn't know English? Then in that case, it's like, well, are there other bits I could have done? Could I have changed it and done something that's more relatable to them? Like, they're people who are learning English, in which case I would probably look at myself and go, yeah, I should have done the mistakes that my students have made bits. Like, English language bits, things that they could at least hopefully relate to, even if their English wasn't that good. For example, if that was the point, hey, I noticed that a lot of, as a lot of my students have made this mistake, and they can sit there and go, oh yeah, I make that mistake. Or, oh, I've heard that. Yeah. Or, that's a mistake. I didn't know. Oh my God, is that how it sounds? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you try to, I think it's not a waste of time. I think doing that is sort of defeatist. It's like anything, you learn from your mistakes, but if you never analyze your mistakes, you're never going to learn from it. You know what I mean? But then it is a waste. You're the only one who's wasting that moment is you.
If you don't learn anything from it.
Well, if you don't try at least. Maybe it's just another lesson you've already learned 20 times and you go, damn it, that was just it.
But would you, the question I think that I was getting at is, would you blame yourself?
If the whole show was shit, no, I wouldn't blame myself. But at the same time, I would start thinking, okay, what could I have done to at least try to help out that situation? Should it have been a case of, and sometimes I wonder whether, because, a lot of times when we're hosting, for example, we get up, we have our line of comedians. All the comedian really cares about is who was the comedian before them so they can get ready, right? And then they either watch the sets or they look at their bits, right? And they memorize their bits and they're trying to practice them before they have to get up on stage. The problem is that sometimes, like if the show is dying, no comedian, I don't know if there's really that many comedians who would be willing to switch their sets that they were planning on doing in order to do something to instead help out. You know what I mean? It's like, look, guys, we are crashing. Me as the host, I'm trying my best to do what I can, but I can't, like, I'm having troubles. Whoever's next, like, you, for example, like, if you're next, it's like, Igor, I am dying here. I know you wanted to do your bit about the potato in the supermarket and all that sort of thing.
My favorite bit.
Yeah. But, it's like, that is not working. Is there any other bit you think that might work better for tonight? Or do you think that would be good enough? And then you might go, actually, considering it is a bunch of 20-year-olds who looks like they're in startup relationships, he's like, I can do some of my relationship stuff instead. Let's see if we can get it back on track. And that kind of like everyone helping to get the show back, I don't think we're there yet. Or at least, maybe it's just something I'm thinking of right now. Maybe that's what needs to be done, but maybe not. Maybe it shouldn't be that way, and it's the host's responsibility. I don't know. What do you reckon?
I mean, that's something that only very versatile, experienced comics can do. That if you ask them 2 minutes before they go on stage, so listen, the room is not very receptive to, I don't know, jokes about relationships or anything like this, change your set to fit the room, right? And that they can go, okay, my first 4 jokes I will replace with these other 4 jokes that are also good jokes and that work. So, you have to have a lot of material, and you have to have that flexibility that you can rewrite your set and go with the flow in that final moment. I've done this a million times. I've kind of came with an idea of doing one set, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. I peaked at the room. I was like, nope, this is not gonna work. And I went with a completely different material set. Maybe not 2-3 minutes before coming out on stage, but 20 minutes before the show started, when I came and I observed and analyzed the room. But I have definitely done it. But I know some people who they just come with their new 10 or tight 10. That's their club set. Doesn't matter the room, they're going to do that club set. We have some comics that have, for example, their punchlines are mostly in Russian. So there is some confusion with the language, something like this. So their punchline is in Russian. If the whole room is Russian, it kills. If the half of the room is foreign, it bombs. But either or, they will come with that set. So it's not...
Well, this is what I mean. Maybe because we don't have hours and hours of material at this point, that sort of thing. It's hard to switch. I also hear a lot of with Americans when listening to certain podcasts where maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like they work in smaller bits. They have lots of little bits, and then what they can do is when they arrive at a club, they're like, okay, I've got these 50, throughout my career, I've built up these 50 different bits. They can look out into the crowd and go, right, this bit, then this bit, and then I'm going to do this bit, and then I'm going to do that bit. And pretty much it's their set list. And that's what they'll write on their hand and just go with that. You know what I mean? So maybe that's sort of the versatility is that we don't have that. I mean, I know for me, it's very difficult because I do mainly stories or whole bits. So when I do it to kind of oh, can you switch that up? It's like, oh man, I've just spent the week brainstorming this, coming up with it. Now you want me to do, and if it's an old classic bit, then yeah, I can. But even then I have to quickly rewatch it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Mr. Aramis Bungle. And
it's fine. I'll link your YouTube channel under every video, every episode, David. They all know.
Yeah. But the point is I might have to quickly rewatch it to remember what some of the punchlines are or where I go. For me, oh right, yeah, that bit. And then, that's... Yeah, sometimes that I can do, but not always. Yeah, I think it depends.
So yeah, I think it requires to actually work every room, it requires a certain level of experience, professionalism.
Yep, and
flexibility and versatility or whatever.
And
to be able
and material.
Yeah, and amount of material. Yeah. But I can say that, since I started doing comedy, I know that for some of our comics that I see, it really, really, really...
It weighs on them, heavy?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly. So
plays on their mind, really bothers them.
Yeah, so for some of our comics, I've noticed that it really bothers them when they don't do well, especially when they're the only one that hasn't done well, but also when the whole show hasn't done well, and they really have this bitter aftertaste, after coming off stage. And I know they spent the next few days or even few weeks not showing up for shows and rethinking that material and so on. I've never, ever, since I started doing, even on open mics where I do, 5 minutes of new material, no one laughs or whatever, I never blame myself, because it's always, I tried this, that's it. And I know some specific, for example, cases. Last year, before the whole pandemic thing, last time we managed to do a tour, a tour abroad. Mm-hmm. So we did, if I'm not mistaken, 11 shows in 12 days, so in 14 days, something like this, mostly around Northern Europe, Scandinavia. So basically we went traveling with the same show. It was 3 comics, a show about kind of life in Russia, and we took it to different cities, different venues in Northern Europe, right? So at one of those places, it was a Tuesday or Wednesday evening, small student city in Sweden, middle of winter, and a venue that is a mix between a gastro pub and a restaurant. So kind of a venue where you would go to have some dinner or maybe watch football or something, definitely not stand up. So it was too bright. The layout was very poor for stand up. There was no stage, there was no spotlights, anything. There was a microphone that was very kind of quiet, so you could barely hear it behind first 2 front rows, etc., etc. Many factors that just... So it was exactly the same show. We've done all those 12 days, exactly the same lineup, the same jokes, the same energy. In all of those places, it was a hit. People loved it. I mean, again, without, bragging or something. People just liked it. It was a good show. I consider it a good show, and that's why I'm confident enough to, charge people for it and to go and do such tours.
Yeah.
But in this one place, it just was nothing. It was just hour and a half of us. It was like a TED talk. It was us just talking and people just listening and nodding. Like, I think if we got like one laugh each during our 25-30 minute sets, if I remember, like, I'm exaggerating, like, by saying we got one laugh each.
There was a voice in your head going, 3 laughs in total? You bullshit.
Killed it.
No, you didn't, Igor. No, you didn't.
So, yeah, I mean, we got some laughs, we got some chuckles, but compared to all other shows, it was very underwhelming.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
it's an experience, though.
Yeah, it's an experience. And like after that show, we sat down and we took a long walk, 3 of us, and we discussed like, are we now tired? Are we exhausted? Is it, what's the problem? Did we not, deliver and so on? But then at the end of the day, the next day, we were even more tired and more, exhausted and etc. And it was again another small, cold, northern Swedish city, and the show killed. So the only kind of difference, the only variable that changed was the audience. And
the venue as well. Like you just described the venue as being overly lit, bad microphone.
Yeah, true. I mean, the venue as well, but I've performed over my last 6 years in way worse venues as well, where they would be like, again, bright beautiful day outside, sometimes no microphone. We had shows with no sound system or something like this. So
sometimes that's better than a weak microphone though.
Yeah, so it's just basically the room was just the audience was just not ready for that show. I can't say it was a bad audience. There is definitely something. If there was some famous Swedish comic maybe performing, they would be dying of laughter. I don't know, but it just wasn't. We were just not the right show for that audience. But that was definitely on the audience because the show is a good show. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes you can say, okay, it was my fault if you're, again, the only one in the lineup that did badly. So you can say, okay, obviously it was me. Sometimes if it was the only audience that didn't laugh, you can say, okay, it was the audience. Overall, I think in our situation here in Moscow, the best we can hope for is that they can understand us and they understand what stand-up is, and that if push comes to shove, we pull out the big guns and do the heavy hitting jokes about this is how it is to be a foreigner in Russia. This is the mistake I made when learning Russian. This is
me buying a towel.
Yeah. This
Watch
is what
my
happened.
Dance.
Yeah, and be very physical like you are, or kind of be very charming like I am. So this is we should all play our strengths. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But I think undeniably there will be shows that just won't be that good.
In which case, just go with the flow, roll with the punches, take it in stride, and try to learn from it if you can. Even if the lesson you learned was that was just an audience that had no clue what I was doing, or their English wasn't good enough. Okay, fair enough. That's what you learned.
I would say it's kind of the thing with I guess trains, Tinder matches, and stand-up shows. There's always next one.
Yeah. Only when it's 5 in a row that truly suck. Really start analyzing. Analyze it. Yeah.
Change something. Something.
Yeah, try something different. Just try it. Whatever. Yeah.
Same goes for trains and Tinder matches. If you're not getting any, try something different.
Yeah.
Maybe use a bus or
or Grindr.
Yeah. Try something different.
Try it different. Yeah. All right, so thank you very much for listening. Social media now, we have it. Woohoo! So, really, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. I believe you can now also find us on YouTube.
You can find us
on YouTube. Yeah.
You can find us on YouTube if you want to listen to this exact episode, but with a small visual representation.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the main thing is the social media. You can leave comments on all these things, and we would love it. We really would love to hear back from you guys, whether you're enjoying it, whether you're not enjoying it, what things you would like to improve, maybe criticisms. We're really open about it, and we'd appreciate any feedback on how to improve the show. Maybe there's a segment or something you'd like, or maybe you're like, I want you to do this more. Can you tell us more about this? Because we're constantly analyzing analyzing ourselves, you know. We can't tell what we're doing great or not because there's no audience here. So if you want to hear more about us in Russia, then please tell us. We want to hear about more what it's like for you guys in Russia. If you want to say, can you make it more global, then we make it more global. If you say, we want you to give more examples, okay, then we can give more examples. So whatever you want, leave a comment and we'll try to incorporate it and we'll see how much comments we get. Also, we have a Patreon, right?
We have a Patreon as
so
well.
we would really appreciate if you could also give to that. Igor, of course, will put a link and everything with that. And if you cannot give to Patreon, then we say there is an alternative to giving us money, and that is sharing us. Sharing our podcast. If there's a particular episode that you listen to and you're like, oh, my friend John would like it, or hey, Michelle would get a kick out of this, then give it to Michelle, give it to John, share it with them, get them to listen, things like that. Or just share it onto your Facebook, your Instagram and things, and give us a heads up. That'd be really greatly appreciated, because right now, the more people that hear us, the better it is.
So look us up, The Comedy Kiosk, on all these social networks. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Igor Monday.
And I'm David Munoz. Thank you very much for listening. Good night.
Goodbye.
I said night again. Should we just do that last bit again?
No.
Okay.
Let them know we recorded in the middle of the night.
2 in the morning.